All right, we can go.
Welcome to the Poor Rikes. We are the Poor Rikes because we're poor.
She's trying. Poor. And she didn't do
Oh yeah.
the.
Poor.
All right. So I think maybe part of that is that she might be a little tired. Are you a little tired?
No.
Okay, because we just got done with a 2 hour conversation we just recorded. It was much longer than we were expecting, and I was telling her how in the past few episodes, our first episode was like I think an hour almost, like pretty close to an hour.
Yeah.
And then every single episode since has only gotten longer, and our last one was literally 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I was checking out like the time on our recording here, and I was like, I just our conversation it flowed. I mean, we did change a couple topics, and there was a little bit of awkwardness, but it just flowed so much, and I did not want to interrupt and stop it, and that's why I just let it go on. I was like, you know what, screw it, man. We got a 2 hour episodes, then so be.
I mean, if people aren't listening to an hour-long episode, then they probably aren't going to listen to the 2 hour one either. But does it make that much of a difference?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, if it's interesting enough, you pause it and then continue and whatever kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this episode, what did you can let them know what we're gonna talk about for
Okay.
to start.
So I wanted to update. So previously on the Poor Rikes. I
On the third episode, or what? Previously, not the
think it was the fourth
episode just
episode.
before this
Yeah.
one, but just previously on another episode.
So I talked about how I was a bad friend,
Mm.
and specifically about Robin because her aunt had just died of COVID and I hadn't reached out to her yet.
No, I think that would be the fourth one,
Yeah. So
bacon one. I believe that was the bacon episode.
which is really funny because Robin has a really good friend whose last name is Bacon and she just calls her Bacon.
Okay, I'm not trying to interrupt. I just go ahead.
Just relating it back. So that very night, I went back to my room after you and I had done talking, and I picked up my phone to text her. I'm sorry about your Aunt Jenny, and then she had called. Like I had a missed call from her from 2 hours before.
Oh wow!
So
Same night we were talking
the
about
same night
her.
we were talking about it.
And Crystal was feeling really guilty for not reaching out to her.
Yeah.
Because she just mentally was not in a place where you could be there for her. Okay.
Sometimes you just can't be a good friend. So,
Like me, never a good friend.
yeah. So I called her back and she was awake. It was like 10 o'clock or something. We ended up talking for I think over an hour. Which is another reason why I don't reach out more is because I have a tendency to talk for longer than I'm comfortable when I do talk to people. And I know that I don't have the like I can't just be like, all right, I'm tired now.
You could.
You
choose not to
I don't-
because you feel bad about it.
yes. But
She's
also,
a dork ass.
also like while I'm talking to people, I'm usually pretty jazzed up. And then I just get really tired later. So like yesterday, I basically slept all day and all night. I didn't mean to, but I did. And then I took a nap this morning. So I was awake for like 2 hours and I was like, I need a nap. So I slept for 4 hours. So yeah, so I talked to Robin. So her aunt had died of COVID. So had her uncle, not married or anything, just a different
Part of the
uncle from a
family.
different side of the family. And so had the grandmother of her best friend.
3 family members, or well, 2 family members and a close friend.
Yeah. And this was somebody that Robin had grown up with and probably called grandma
very
at
close.
certain times. Yeah.
Okay.
So
3 dead COVID
yeah.
family members,
3 dead
basically.
Yeah, and her dad was in the hospital for something else, and then her mom had gotten COVID, but obviously didn't die. So yeah, not a good week for her. And that's another reason that I have a hard time reaching out. Sometimes like I don't know if I can have a tough conversation right now. So
No,
but-
I remember. I understood this. So can you explain it now? Hopefully, you will catch that part in our 4th episode. But I remember when we spoke of it. I completely understand, and I'm sure other people understand too.
yeah.
Well,
She does, and that's okay. So I think part of what really messed me up in terms of like thinking about that is because okay, so first of all, Robin's fine. She's she was really close to her aunt and she's pretty distraught about that. She was really close to her best friend's grandma, and then her uncle she didn't like that much. So, and then her dad was okay, and her mom was okay. So it wasn't all completely bad. I don't want to just like change the subject and just be like, but she was fine. And she works in a prison, so she gets tested every single week, and then every morning they have to take their temperature as they walk in. So she and all of the people she works with are being tested basically every day.
Every single day.
So
every single working day.
Yeah. And then the rest of the time she's at home. So yeah. She said she hasn't had a hug since just before Halloween.
Wow.
Yeah. Which even then it was like kind of snuck because it was her sister's kids, and her sister's husband is very like, don't touch anybody. So she had to sneak a hug before Halloween, and then, so that was like 5 months ago. 5 months ago? No, 3 months ago.
Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. So yeah, so she doesn't live with anybody, so she's just kind of by herself all the time. But she's good solo. She has a hard time like living with people, because even when I was there for 3 weeks, we were like both sick of each other after like the second week. So,
That's a fun story, by the way. We don't get into it right now, but she told me about the story where she spent time at her house for a short bit, and I loved hearing it anyways. I thought it was a fun story.
So she's a good friend. She's somebody that like I can be as comfortable with her as I am by myself, which is not how I would feel about most people. Most people I feel like
including her own brother.
Shut up. Not true. So yeah, so most people I feel like I'm constantly working on matching people's energy, and that takes energy, and then I get tired after I interact with people, even if I really like them.
It's really weird. So there's a lot of things that you've been sharing with me, and this we've talked about it a little bit before here, these brief little things, and every time something like that, you talk about that, the way you interact with people like that specifically, like you're trying to match their energy level, that's so weird to me.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I'm just like, so there's a lot of, it's interesting too. Like, it's interesting. It's how my sister is. All these little small things. It's just like, what? Why are you like this?
Because I'm broken.
No, it's because you're different. I wouldn't, specifically that, I wouldn't say broken. It's just a different thing. Like that's part of one of my favorite things about our conversations is that we have a full understanding we fully understand each other, and but we're in so many ways we are so different, like so different. Like, it's crazy. Anyways, I'm just when you say stuff like that, I'm just like, how are you like? Because that's something I can't even relate to. Like, I can't even relate to being that way,
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's just an interesting thing. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, whatever. And it's just a trip. So
I
I'm
guess,
sorry.
well, I mean, you're speaking for anybody who's listening who like also doesn't get it. They're just like, what?
Well, they might
to match their energy.
Maybe they do understand.
Well, if they get it, then they're like, I understand her and I don't understand him.
Yeah.
But then other people
You're
are like,
an idiot. What the hell's
other
wrong
people
with you?
are like, he's right and she's weird. So everybody's covered.
No, but that's just what I love, is because there are plenty of things we agree with, but we don't go out of our way to agree with the other.
No.
Well, I can't think of a single time we've ever gone out of our way.
Like, our baseline is that we're both decent human beings.
Right? That's what's a trip to me too, because I even mentioned this in my gaming podcast recently, and because it's related to everything. I was like, one of the things that I was talking about the games, right? And I was like, most of my favorite games in my life, other people hated. And so
like
this
Anthem.
So
oh, we had a week of
my
Anthem.
sister knows that one.
Oh, it was a saga.
This is what's funny, because I mentioned that in my video, and the video was about blowing things out of proportion, games with launch issues and stuff like that, right?
Uh-huh.
And I specifically mentioned Anthem. I talked very little about it, but I did mention it. I was like, look, I don't want to talk about Anthem because I have talked so damn much about it already. And, so I talked very briefly on it, right? But it's funny. That's really funny because even my sister knows. Okay, she brought that up. I didn't know she was gonna say that. That is freaking hilarious, man. My sister knows about Anthem. Okay, so that's a big damn deal. Okay,
And anytime I see anybody shit on Anthem, I'm like, you're wrong.
my brothers. She's on the germ bandwagon for Anthem. Okay, so why did we get into that? Because it's so funny. Oh, what was it? There was something I was
This is why these
relating
conversations
to.
take 2 hours, by the way.
Yeah, it was something I was relating to though in my podcast where I was related to what we were just talking about. Damn it, what was it before Anthem? Well, since I've forgotten, I really wish I could remember. But I had a good point. I
It's
actually
like
had a
different
really
people being able to relate or something. It's like some people relate to me, some people relate to you.
God. I wish that's not it though. No, well, screw it. Whatever. We can get back to Robin. That's
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
So I talked to Robin. She actually was concerned that I was just like, she was like, thank you for calling me back. You know, I know how you are.
Did we?
She's met me.
I don't. So we briefly touched. The reason we're talking about this. My sister wanted to talk about specifically with me is the updates. She spoke with Robin, her friend, who we have a conversation in the previous episode. My sister felt really extremely guilty and bad for not reaching out to her.
Yeah,
to let her know that
yeah.
We specifically spoke about Robin.
When something that bad happens, and I had met Jenny, and I really liked her, and so Robin, I knew how much Robin loves her. Mm-hmm. It's not like a distant aunt. Like that was her.
Someone very close.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's funny, and the reason that my sister specifically says that is because, as we have also mentioned in our previous episodes, is we're not close with our relatives. We never were.
Oh my God. She goes, so what's up with you? After we had talked about her for a little bit, and I was like, well, nobody's died. Oh wait, Grandma died.
Did they?
And I was like, wait,
that.
Was that last week?
I forgot. Now, so our grandma had Alzheimer's and stuff, right? And
she had a stroke, and then she couldn't talk anymore. Yeah. And she's
been in a home for a while, unable to speak.
Like 5 years.
Yeah, unable to speak.
Yeah.
Which is horrible.
Yeah, stuck in a wheelchair.
One thing I didn't ask, and I forgot, and I didn't think about it. Did they? I'm just curious. Did they mark her death as COVID, or was it just?
I have no idea.
Okay. I was wondering if you had heard, because you said you talked to our aunt.
I did talk to Myra, but we didn't talk about cause of death. I assume it was either COVID or old age. I don't know.
Or whatever she was already in, because she already had issues. That's why she was there.
And, So she couldn't walk around. She couldn't talk. She couldn't and then also. There were times that I would go visit her that I thought she recognized me, and then there were other times that she would see me and she would look furious, which I think she thought I was Mom, and she was younger because she used to hate Mom.
So not hate, but anger, right?
Hate.
Oh, really?
Hate, yeah.
Okay. I don't know their personal relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think there were times when she did hate Mom, and then there were times that she loved her.
Of course,
but she was very abusive.
I mean, there were times I hated Mom.
Right?
So yeah.
Hateable, so lovable, so hateable. Anyway, so I told her about Grandma, and I was like, I mostly feel relieved for Grandma.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I felt relieved for
more
Mom.
than sad for me. I grieved when she had the stroke and wasn't able to be herself anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty horrible.
Yeah, and
especially having to remain alive and not be able to even engage
being
with
trapped
people.
in your own body, and I
think most of us would not want that to happen.
Yeah,
be put us out of our freaking misery. What the hell?
You shouldn't live beyond being able to actually live.
Yeah.
And there are people who don't agree with that. They think every breath is a gift and all that. I don't believe that. Man. So
I disagree. Yeah.
There have been times in my life
we know. Look, man, if I was. It's such a weird thing. Some people have been paralyzed for life, have actually lived a decent life.
Oh yeah.
And
she seemed pretty happy most of the time.
It was hard, but you couldn't tell though.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't truly tell.
And I don't want her to live a life based on what my assumption of her happiness is. So maybe she was perfectly fine that whole 5 years.
Maybe.
But I do know that I got there, and
I know if I ever get in that position, you fucking kill me.
Yeah. Well, there was a time when I was visiting her almost every day, and I went in. And when I saw her, usually she was either sleeping or she was fine. And she was crying, and I went over to the nurse's station, and it said she's crying. And then somebody asked me, does that happen a lot? And I was about to say no, and one of her nurses walks by and goes, yep. I was like, oh crap.
Wait, does what happen a lot?
Her crying, her just sitting in her chair and crying.
Oh, I thought you were the one that was crying.
No, I wasn't crying.
Okay.
I'm
I don't know how I mixed that up. So
Yeah.
grandma was just crying.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, it's so sad.
Yeah. So anyway, so when I would see her, she usually seemed pretty happy.
Yeah.
I mean,
or normal.
And sometimes angry. So when I walked in once and she looked up at me and she just like glared at me. I was like, "Do you want me to leave?" And she was like, and she nodded, and I was like, "Yeah."
I remember one time I wasn't, because like I didn't visit her half as often as my sister did. My sister visited her for quite a while. What in the hell are these things? Anyways, I remember one time when I went to her to visit, and she looked at me. It was so hard to tell what that look was, because it was like I felt like she recognized me, but also didn't.
You might have thought you were Kenny.
Oh yeah, we look alike. Me, Kenny, Robert. I noticed this about our.
Okay, you have brown eyes, so she might have thought you were Kenny, but with brown eyes, and was like, I thought his eyes were blue.
It's funny because like I was looking. I don't remember when exactly. Because I think it was like probably around the time Mom was dying,
Mm-hmm.
when we actually spent more time with our relatives, and I started to notice. I had never. It's funny because I'd never really noticed it before, but I was looking at. I think it was Kenny. I was just looking at him, and because I was recognizing myself in him, and then I noticed it. It was like that big giant fucking forehead. I was like, son of a bitch, it's hereditary, you know? Like, I was like, 'cause I hate my big giant ass damn forehead, man. It's huge. It's fucking enormous. It's a damn tower. It's a skyscraping forehead. And then I noticed that it ran in the family. You know, I never noticed it before though. And I think part of that was because when I was younger, I had fucking bangs. You know, I had really long ass hair in my face and stuff.
Well, also your hairline has receded.
Yeah.
Started receding when you were like 18.
Did?
Yeah.
What? No, because I had really long ass bangs and shit back then.
You did, but like you started receding back then.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't remember how I got it was just oh, because we were talking about like if I couldn't tell if grandma recognized me or not. Like I felt like she did, but I also could not tell like what that look was exactly, because it wasn't welcoming, but it wasn't like push away.
Yeah.
So I was like, what do I like how do I respond to that, you know? Anyways, so what was the you brought up grandma because of Robin?
Yeah, so because initially I was just like, she asked me how my week was, and I was just like, well, 3 people I know didn't just die, so and then I realized that grandma had just died, and I hadn't talked to her like in weeks, so I hadn't told her yet. But I was just like, it's so weird to me, like that somebody that like was my mom's mom could die, and I could like not feel like grief.
Not deep, or like,
no, I wasn't even sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, here, okay, now that we are different, we have this different thing, but I mean, there's that as well, that we didn't know our relatives very well, even our grandma.
Yeah.
I loved grandma though. I remember like just for the very few, the one person we spent the most time with in our entire family was grandma.
I would say Sarah.
For the most part, yeah.
You mean when we were really young?
And the only reason was Sarah was because we actually lived in the same complex.
Yeah.
But as far as visits though, like the only family member we ever actually visited was grandma.
Oh, that's right. We did used to go visit grandma.
Yeah. So yeah. No, I'm glad we had Sarah in the same complex, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have spent as much time with her. But even then, we never really got close. It's such a weird thing. It really is weird to me that even though it's kind of like we talked about this before, the part of the reason we're doing this podcast is because we spent our entire life together, but we don't hang out together.
Yeah, so there's a lot we don't know.
So even when we lived in the same complex, same apartment building as one of our relatives, one of our aunts, if you pronounce it correctly, if you're fancy and smancy and whatever. No, it's our horrible American English that we just say aunt, you know. But we lived in the same complex, and we did spend more time with her because of it, but not like a personal time. It was just we just happened to be in the same area.
No, she would come over and visit. You
Yeah.
were usually gone.
Oh, okay. So
she'd
you
visit
spent
with
more
me and
time with her
Mom,
than I
yeah.
did. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Well, I forget why I got into that, but anyways,
Oh, I said I wasn't sad when Grandma died.
oh, and that just makes me think of because there's for me a part of that is like you even said it too is there's kind of a relief that she's not in that position anymore. So,
Yeah.
but there is a lack of connection,
Oh yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I was sad when she had her stroke,
Yeah.
and I was sad that she had kind of lost the life that I would consider a life where you have some sort of autonomy over your life. Like, what is life without autonomy? I don't even know, you know.
Autonomy is movement, right?
Autonomy is like being able to choose. Like, she didn't choose her dinner. She didn't choose, you know,
Yeah.
like to go to the bathroom by herself.
Literally
like,
everything was controlled by somebody else.
She
She was
even
basically a robot.
She couldn't even express herself. Like,
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking has that machine, and people are like, he's the smartest dude in the universe. Like, nobody's going to say that about
He can
Grandma.
still communicate.
Because she can be just as smart, but nobody can hear her, you know?
Okay. And the only reason I was thinking about that, I don't... Man, it's such a trip because I really don't want to stick on this specific topic, but it does remind me of Mom, and we had a different reaction to that as well, sort of. Oh, I don't want to get too deep into that either right now, but
I mean,
I felt a relief when
I did
when
too. I felt
when her last breath. I'll never forget that last breath, man. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I like, but for me it's different. That last breath, literally for me, was a relief.
not the last breath for me was
Yeah,
a relief, but
I know that was different. That's why I don't want to say it. Just I know,
but her
that's the
dying was
difference
a
between
relief.
us. Yeah.
Like, at least in terms of because of the quality of life or lack of quality of life that she'd had for so long. And also because I had been taking care of her for so long, I was relieved because of that too. But like, just, oh God, it was just such a horrible, if you've ever watched somebody die, like they say that people die peacefully in their sleep, but she was not asleep and she was not peaceful. And this, like,
it wasn't a nightmarish.
There's some. It was pretty nightmarish. There was some term for like the breathing that she was doing. This like dying breathing, where you like can't breathe, so you're just like gasping and groaning for hours.
God. Okay, when you describe it like that.
So
it's true though. It's true.
I used to have a joke where I'd say I wanted to get a tattoo of my mom's dying words.
Oh my God.
And
we're laughing. It's fucking horrible, but that as a tattoo, that's fucking hilarious. You know, it's funny. They actually, I believe, if I remember right, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, but that. Oh, what the hell's the damn movie? The one with the rabbit, the bunny rabbit, and the Knights of Knee. Do you remember the Knights of Knee?
No.
It was Monty Python something.
Oh, that's probably
Holy Grail. Monty Python Holy Grail. There's a part where this guy is leaving a message on the wall or whatever, right? And he's dying.
Uh-huh.
And the last thing he writes is, ugh. I can't remember exactly specifically. I just remember that part. I could be remembering it wrong, but that's what it is, basically, right? Funny. Yeah. It's because they're dying, so they literally write out, ugh. It could have been reading that message. Mm-hmm. They might have been reading it, or the dude died and wrote it. But it was funny, though, because that was the message. It was just like, he was writing this message out, this little, like, thing, and then at the end, it was like, ugh. Anyways, no, so... Yeah. So Robert, the reason when we started this conversation, it was because you wanted to talk. You thought it was cool. You had updates for Robin.
Yes.
And okay. So are we done with Robin?
No.
Or are you okay? All right.
So a couple things about Robin. So okay. She was like, "Thank you for calling me back." And because she knows that I struggle with like depression, anxiety, and she does too, and that's why she understands it so much. So I was like, so I have this other friend, Madeline, who kind of stopped being friends with me because I couldn't constantly validate her existence. Or, in her words, I never texted her or called her. She always had to reach out to me.
You know what's funny about that to me is there's a couple things. So I remember when I first heard about Madeline and all the different conversations, and I would briefly hear of her, and then I would speak to my sister about her. And because I would hear my sister was basically this person's psychiatrist. every single time because I would be walking from room to room. Like I would go to the bathroom, I'd go to the kitchen, get some food, and then come back to my room. I wasn't like specifically trying to eavesdrop. I could just hear the conversations, and every time it was just like, literally, my sister was this person's psychiatrist, and every impression I ever had was this person is a psycho bitch.
That's what you used to call her.
And it's because at the same time, I don't hate her.
Uh-huh.
I don't feel hate for her. It was just the way that I would hear you having to explain like the most basic, simple shit to somebody that needs some kind of like reinforcement that they're correct, or I don't know how to put it, but it was just every time I heard you talk to her, I was like, this person's a moron. Like,
and she's not. She was
no.
She was very emotionally immature. She's gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
But at the time, like, okay, so we worked together, and then she quit her job. We had hung out a couple of times and kind of mutually decided, nah. But then my mom died, and she decided that she was gonna be the person to save me from my sadness. So she would call me every single day to see how I was doing. And then so at a certain point, I would scream at her for like 20 minutes about how much I hated God, and she's a Christian, by the way. And
so put it in her face.
And how pissed I was, and how life wasn't worth living, and what the fuck is the point of being alive when the people you love aren't here, and what's the point of loving people when they're just gonna fucking die right in front of you. That kind of, stuff that happens after somebody you love dies in front of you. How you feel about that? So, we would talk about that.
Well, that was your response.
But
mine was different.
Yeah, yours was different. But then we'd always get around to why she was single.
Really?
Oh,
I didn't know this part.
Conversation.
I remember the other part. I do not remember this part.
She's like, why am I single? She's like, I keep going on these dates and these guys don't love me. Like, they'll text me for a couple of days in a row, but then when they realize I won't sleep with them, then they just dump me, and I'm just like,
that's kind of messed up.
But that wasn't why. Sometimes it was, but that.
It's her perspective.
If you don't,
it's funny.
If you don't have a connection with somebody and you don't see a future with them, then you're not going to keep calling them. But also the other thing about her was that she needed constant validation. Yeah, so if a guy was going to be interested in her, what she needed was a text every morning, a text sometime during the day, and a text before bed.
Check this out. Now that's funny though that you say that, because a long time ago, in a story that I hate to remember and think about, I had an online relationship. And this was before it was normal. This was when if you met somebody online, you were ridiculed like fucking crazy if you talked to people. And I always thought it was weird back then when I was really into this person, because I was like, we've spoken for years. This isn't like we didn't just meet for a few minutes and be like, oh, I love you.
Yeah.
We had known each other very intimately just through conversation, whatever. So why did I bring that up? That just made me because I'll tell you why. I loved talking to her all the damn time. So the funny part about this, I get that like some people are like super needy and stuff, and then other times it's you
but you knew each other for years before you decided you liked talking to her all the time.
Well, it was just a natural thing.
It was a progression. It didn't start with you talking every day.
Yeah.
But
and
that's
constantly,
that's kind of what she would demand, like from the beginning of a relationship.
Okay.
Right. If you're interested in me, then you need to want to talk to me all the time.
Okay. That's what it just made me think of that, because I was like, well, I really like talking to my girlfriend all the time.
Yeah.
But no, but it was a grown,
very
long time of. Okay.
Yeah, there's a progression. There's a natural progression from I don't know you to I want you in my life.
We're getting to know each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But for her, it just was like, so in the one relationship where she did get engaged was this dude who did that and then dumped her because he had an argument with her brother and she wouldn't take his side. She wouldn't take, well, it's not even not take his side. She wouldn't disown her brother because this guy had a fight with her brother. So he dumped her. And then married somebody else.
What a trip, man. Later. Yeah. All right. Anyways, I'm sorry. You just reminded me of that. That's all. I was like, but I like talking to somebody I care about all the time.
Yeah,
But no, that
it takes
does
a
make
while to
sense.
decide
Yeah.
that you care about them that much. Like
Yeah.
it just anyway. But
She's very
she was
needy in that
constantly
sense.
expecting
Yeah.
that. But like we'd go from me talking about my dead mom and how life wasn't worth living to like, but why am I still single? I was like, I just wanted to be like, bitch, because you can't fucking like empathize with somebody whose mother just died. Can't find a reason to live in. I'm
Now,
supposed to tell you why you're single.
she was one of several or many people or whatever that her answer to you was just be happy.
Well, be happy.
In a sense.
Yeah, she wanted me to focus on what I had.
Yeah.
And like my response in a different
we spoke about this before
different
a little bit.
podcast
Missing
like,
an arm and
missing an arm, it's still harder to hold shit, Like
I appreciate my other arm, but that's still gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you need two hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, like to do something.
And this is a person who was insisting that, oh well, just appreciate what you have.
Yeah.
Rather than understanding the loss.
Basically her metaphor was you have a house full of people that you love and who love you, right? I was like, and she's like, and you keep spending all your time in the empty room.
Yeah.
And I was like,
we literally, it's two of us.
no, just emotionally.
That's so funny though. Like house full of people? What? Yeah, that's like saying my bank's full of money. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
And I was trying to get her to understand that, like, when somebody moves out abruptly, then the pain of that loss, they move out abruptly and you're never going to see them again. The pain of that loss is going to take over your emotions more than your appreciation for the people who are there still. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I appreciate the people that I have, but I've also lost. It doesn't
take away the pain that's literally right now.
I still have this huge void in the middle of my fucking house.
Like, all pain usually goes away with time. It doesn't mean it disappears forever.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't even say that. I would say that we learn to cope with it.
I word things badly, I know.
Well, no, you're not bad at it. That's just how other people describe it, and I've never agreed with it. Like, I hurt just as bad as the day she died. When I stop and, like, it's just a certain moment hits me. But most of the time I have those feelings nice and neatly packed away.
No, that reminds me.
And I've learned to stay away from that room in my house, basically.
Well, the reason I say
But when I go near that room, I still am reminded of how much pain that is. And when I walk into that room, it still hurts as much.
Okay, and we are different in that way. We are. And I remember I had a conversation. It was a tough conversation, and it's still... right. So we're going in a way that's a little. Hopefully, we'll have to pull it back a little bit.
Yeah.
If whatever, we'll see what happens. But it was a while back where our different reactions to our mom dying were different, and the reason for me personally, the reason I saw it different was because I had closure. I had multiple opportunities of closure that I took with our mom when she was in the hospital. I told her goodbye.
Oh, and I was sure she was never going to die.
I told her, I gave her my goodbyes. I made sure she knew how much she meant to me. And I didn't want her to die. Mm-hmm. And I also wasn't expecting her to die. But I'd never seen our mom like this. Not ever. Our mom, dude, she was dying and would not let you know she was dying.
She would not let me call 911 to get an ambulance.
She would pretend everything's fine, everything's normal, and not pretend, but really truly act like nothing's wrong. She would. That's just,
She would. Oh, so sometimes I'd be like, "How are you?" And she'd be like, "I'm in so much pain. Just get a gun and blow my head off." But at the same time, she would get up and carry on and do the things that she always did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, it wasn't until I saw her walking, needing she had a walker because she had a bad hip and sometimes it would go out. And she would use it when we would go to the grocery store and stuff, but she wouldn't usually use it in home. And when she started using it to get up to go to the bathroom, I started to get worried.
You know what's messed up about that? See, now, and this is, again, these are different perspectives that we each had. Like, when we were at the hospital, I knew it was bad and didn't expect her to die so quickly. Mm-hmm. I just knew it was bad. And I'll never forget. What a stupid thing, because the reason that I made sure that I said goodbye to her, and I wasn't saying goodbye, you're dying right now. I was like, just telling her, I love you so much. You're the best mom ever. This kind of stuff. I wanted to make sure she knew with all the problems we had and stuff, it was because of TV and movies. Just straight up. Like, it was because of TV shows and movies that I wanted to make sure, even if she happened to make it through it. But it was like I said, I'd never seen her in this kind of, like, never. Not ever.
Yeah.
And then the same thing when we were at home. God, that I'm not going there because that shit. Anyways, when we got home, I did the same thing one more time in between the morphine drips. One more time, I told her, you were the best mom ever. So for me, I had double closure.
For me, it would have taken more than like that. Okay, partly because I just had there was no acknowledgement or acceptance in my mind or heart that she was actually dying. In my mind, when the doctor said maybe 6 months, I heard at least 6 months.
Yeah.
So that we can find a cure, some miracle drug, some miracle surgery.
Oh, I was giving that the deadline in my head. Yeah.
I was just like, fuck that. Like, there was no way.
You were like, she'll make it after 6 months.
Well, no, here's why. Because I couldn't imagine my life without her.
Yeah.
And I knew that I couldn't survive or be happy ever again if I didn't have her in my life. So how do you imagine that somebody that important to you is going to die, right? And at that point, like I told you, I was so codependent that I couldn't really even separate my own personality from hers. I spent the first 3 years longer after she died, like just figuring out who I was without her.
And that was always a trip. Now, here's an interesting thing for listeners, for me, is until that happened, until our mom's death, I had always thought of my sister as the most strongest individual person I had ever known. And even I saw it. Even I saw the change immediately. Like, immediately, instantly. I saw that change right away. And I didn't know what the freaking hell it was. Because I didn't know it was that thing.
Well, she was so strong. She could be personality for both of us.
No, she was.
And the thing, too, is I remember she visited at work once when I worked at Goodwill. And Sophia, I remember her, like, looking back and forth between us. And she just looked kind of amused. And then after Mom left, Sophia was like, that was interesting to see you interact with your mom. Because at work, I was very kind of take charge and, like, in control and, like, bossy.
Okay.
I was very bossy. Sophia would get so irritated with me for, like, acting like I was her boss. But really, I wasn't. I just knew what needed to be done. And I was like,
taking charge.
So I'll do this, you do this, etc. Kind of, like, whatever. And so I was like that. And then as soon as Mom came in, she was the person in charge. But the difference was, like, what she didn't see was, like, Mom was in charge until she wasn't. So sometimes she would just be, like, forgetful or sad or whatever, and then I would be the parent.
Oh, yeah.
So we would trade places. Most of the time she was the parent, sometimes I was the parent. And then the other reason that like, I had seen her sick in bed before, couldn't get out of bed, because she had done it to herself. Because one time she had a toothache that was so bad that she couldn't get out of bed, and she had waited so long
I forgot about that.
to go see the dentist. Well, because I was the one taking care of her.
Yeah.
So she was in bed for days, and then she was like, finally, like, call the dentist at midnight and get him to write a prescription for me, and I'll go to a 24-hour pharmacy and get a prescription so that I'm not in so much pain. And then there was the other time when she had diabetes, where she had a wound that abscessed because...
What's abscess?
It turns into a flesh-eating bacteria.
Ew.
Yeah. So she had neglected it so much that it had abscess. When she got to the doctor, finally, her blood sugar was, like, close to 400, I think, which, yeah. So she should have been dead. And that was when she found out she had diabetes.
Yeah. Okay. I partially remember that. Like, I do remember that.
But before that, she had been in bed for weeks because she couldn't get up because she had, like, a fever and was sick and kept filling up her, like, just bandages and bandages of pus and Yeah.
See, now this is stuff I didn't know because my sister was the one taking care of my poor sis. Jeez, man. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. Like, she never wanted help with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So she was taking care of it herself, but that was a full-time job at that point. was getting out of bed to clean up her pus and then going back to bed.
So I mean, we talked a little bit about, I think we talked a little bit about this before, of you having a closer relationship with our mom. You just have more time with her, in a sense.
I did. I had a ton more time with her because I was agoraphobic for 10 years.
But I chose to, I mean, I still feel this way. I mean, it's not on purpose. I am a selfish person.
You're not a selfish person.
Self-involved.
We all are.
Anyways, so...
You're not special, Jeremy.
We're in a different situation. Oh my, you idiot. What a you jerk off. I am too. I'm a unique snowflake, you stupid jerk.
I'm especially selfish.
Yeah. I'm more selfish than anybody else on the planet. How dare you? No. So anyways, you had mentioned it a few minutes ago. Now, it's interesting because, to me, when we were in the hospital, this is why I was saying I had never seen her like that before. Even in the hospital, she was her normal self.
Dude, okay, so she had been a bitch for like 2 years. And then she got to the hospital. They put her on morphine and she became herself again. And I walked into the hospital room and she looked up and smiled at me and greeted me. And I was like, I haven't seen this person in 2 years. And it wasn't because she was high on morphine. It was because the morphine had taken her pain down to zero.
Yeah. No, not to zero. But...
Well, so... zero, and then like when the morphine would wear off, she'd need more morphine because like she'd start to get antsy. But basically,
it relieved her pain.
It was the first time that she had ever not been in pain for years, and not just 2 years, but like years.
At least 20.
She had migraine issues. She had back issues. She always had some sort of.
But
pain.
now, so since my sister was there to take care of her often, and I wasn't aware how often, but. For me, in my perspective, I had never known my mom to be weak, and I could always recognize the time she would complain about pains and stuff, right? You know, she would mention stuff, she would complain about certain pains and all that, but even when she would complain about the pain, she'd act like nothing was wrong. So she would continue moving, continue doing all the normal things she would continue doing while complaining about that pain. Yeah. So for me, it was just like, I guess she's just in pain and she's fine.
She's in pain, but she's fine.
Yeah, it's just...
Well, because we all have pain. We all, like, work through headaches, and we all, like, sprain our ankles or whatever. Yeah,
exactly, yeah. And so that's why when we were in the hospital, it was so different for me. And that's why when we were at home, it was so different for me. So you had said it. You had noticed it when she was using the walker and the cane and stuff. And I had seen that too, but for me, it was different because even when she was using the walker... I saw it as just her using what she needed to use and she was fine. And it's so stupid to me that every time I think back to that, I'm like, I'm such an idiot. I remember even when she first died, I was like, there were so many signs that were there that I did not recognize because I'm a stupid idiot.
No, it's not because it's because you're not a doctor, Jeremy.
No, well, no. So, but you did know. You said it. You noticed the walker thing.
Well, that was only...
And that was very obvious. I mean, she used it a lot.
Yeah, but only, and I think at that point you were home more than I was because I was going to school and working.
It was her mannerism. It was her attitude. So even though she was using these things to help her, she still acted like the strongest woman I had ever known.
I think, I don't even know how long she had been using the walker. It wasn't until like maybe a week and a half before she finally let us take her to the hospital that I was talking to her healthcare providers who were supposed to do home visits but didn't because she didn't have the right insurance. Blah blah blah. Yeah. And I was like, she needs a doctor, and they're like, well, just take her to the emergency room. And I was like, we don't have a car, and they were like, just call an ambulance. And I was just like,
who's paying for this shit, people?
Nobody. Well, here's the thing: is she was so persistent in getting on this program, even though she needed Medi-Cal and Medicare. She didn't qualify for Medicare yet because she was like a year away. But she had called them so many times that she persuaded them to let her into this program. But when she was on it, they wouldn't do what they needed to do because she didn't qualify, basically.
Oh, God. So they basically were like, okay, sure, but you don't get any benefits.
Well, they didn't tell her that, but that's what happened. Yeah. So it was her stubbornness that got her on there, but then she couldn't get a fucking doctor. And that's
Medi-Cal in America, people. Health insurance, thank you.
The whole reason that she wanted to get on it was because there were doctor visits. Like, they would come to your house, and her agoraphobia was so bad that she didn't want to leave the house anymore, even to go to the doctor. So, um, so so we're trying to get a doctor there, and I'm just like, I'm describing to the lady over the phone, she has to use her walker to get to the bathroom to go to the bathroom. And like, to me, that was when it hit me, when I said it out
Mm-hmm.
loud. Because I had noticed it like vaguely, but I didn't register until I said the
And that's
words.
what sucks because that's what I'm saying. The difference between me and you is even I saw that and I should have recognized it. But it's like I
But
said,
I
her
don't know if
attitude was
I don't
God,
know if she
I should
ever
have recognized it. I should have.
I don't know if she ever expressed to you how much she hated using that walker. She
No,
hated it.
she, but in such a normal way. Like, I hate this walker. You
No,
know, like,
she hated it
mm,
because she thought that she she thought that it made her look weak,
I, I,
and she was afraid that somebody would come push her over because they saw that she had a
oh
walker.
my
And
gosh.
her therapist finally said to her, "Did you realize that when people see somebody with a disability, they have more of an inclination to go over
To
and
help
help?"
them. Yeah, yeah. Most of
And
the,
that had
yeah.
never occurred to her.
Wow.
She was always afraid that somebody would see her with her cane because she was willing to go out with her cane, and only in rare occasions with the walker. But she was like, she always
She
thought
took
that,
so long to move from the cane to the walker.
yeah,
She fought against it.
yeah.
Yeah,
But she thought
I
that
remember that.
if she went out with a cane, that somebody would kick the cane out from under her
Mm-hmm.
and push her
Mm-hmm.
over. So, and then when we got that wheelchair, like the mobile chair for her, she refused. She refused to
I
test it
remember
out. She
that.
never used it. It was
Yeah.
like a $400 wheelchair.
She
She
got a
never
really
used it.
nice wheelchair.
Even when they came and they had to do a test drive to make sure it worked before they would leave, you had to go out and test
I
it.
forgot about
Yeah.
that.
And this was something else that she didn't
Wow.
qualify for, but she had spent so much time on the phone that she finally got it approved. And she even got, instead of whatever like like joystick that they had to move the thing around, she had gotten the rolly
She
ball.
got a really fancy ass
But she had gotten
wheelchair.
the rolly ball because she had carpal tunnel. And so she had like not only talked herself into a $400 wheelchair with a rolly ball, but then never used it. And we had it for like a year before she died. She just would
Yeah,
not
yeah.
use it. She hated the idea of people seeing her in
So, and this is that's what's such a trip. I still want to get off this topic, but since we're here,
it. You keep
um,
saying that, but then you keep talking about
well,
it.
it's because this is a part of our many different perspectives. Like, and this is why I love our chats because, especially in topics like this where it sucks, you know, but it's kind of eye opening in a sense. Um, because I always knew we talked about this before. In my mind I always knew you and mom were way closer than me and mom.
Mhm.
But I didn't realize like a lot of it was also the taking care of part. I didn't
Mhm.
realize how much you were taking care of mom. Um, because to me, every time I saw her, and including when she was, in the pain and when it got really bad, she was always so strong and so I don't need help.
Well, she had an indomitable spirit, I would say. Even though she had so many so many mental illnesses that I can't even count them at this point.
Our
She
family does apparently.
she worked through so much anxiety and so much trauma and so much. It was kind of like if you asked somebody to sludge through like waist deep mud and shit wearing ball chains every single day just to get to a place where you can seem normal to other people. That was what she did every
She was
single day.
incredibly strong at it.
And
Yeah.
she was always trying to figure out how to be happier and how to be a better person. And she often failed. But she was struggling with so much. And I think what helps me, and like what's different for me versus her, because I have a lot of the same issues or
Mm.
emotional like anxieties and dysfunctions, is that I have the internet and she didn't grow up with that. Like, seriously, like, if I have a question about my mental health, like, not
Mm.
only do I have the internet, but even before that, there was no conversations about mental health when she was young. Like, there was no Oprah, there was no Donahue, there was no, like, Jerry Springer, there was
Mm.
no, like, and here's the thing about Jerry Springer, I hate Jerry Springer,
Right. Yeah.
and I don't feel like he provides any kind of useful shit to America. But at the same time,
This show is so ridiculous.
people who were on there were showcasing behaviors that you didn't see on TV before that.
More obvious, I guess.
People
It
who
was
were
pretty crazy on
like,
that
you
show.
watch that
Was
show and
nuts.
you're like, these people are fucked up.
Yeah.
You're like, I thought I was
Yeah.
only related to people like this. Like, I didn't know that other people were related to people like this.
It was a crazy ass show. It was bad though. Like that's why I didn't. It was just.
It's bad. But
It wasn't. You know why it was bad? It was because it was exploitative.
well, it was exploitative, and then also it was fake. And so at a certain point, they just
yeah.
switched over to actors so they didn't get sued.
Yeah.
But even before that, like,
It was fully
it was
exploitative. Yeah.
and it was a show that people watched so that they could feel better than other people, and I always hated that about that show. Never wanted to watch a show just so I could feel better than about how bad you are.
I forgot. And in Mom's time too. I think just from stories I can remember is a lot of people that just had small issues mentally
Yeah.
would be thrown in a loony bin.
Oh, yeah.
And electrocuted and shit.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Like,
Just
women,
for thinking differently.
yeah, women.
Just like, what the hell?
If you're a woman and you read a book, fucking mental
Yeah.
mental hospital for you.
It's pretty crazy. That's insane, man.
Yeah.
And this is real. This isn't something we're making up and exaggerating about. Like, it's literal.
Yeah. I mean, Grandma had like several meltdowns and left Grandpa and went back to Italy. Like,
Wow.
and she had no family to go to. Like, I don't know what she was doing, but like, she just like would have enough and she'd be like, I'm out of here. But like, but all the TV, all the media when Mom was growing up was either you live a perfect, pristine, happy life or you're a serial killer.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be a serial killer. So the thing about Jerry Springer that I think maybe adds something to America is that for the first time in our like civilization, people's fuck-uppedness was visible. So you could look at somebody and go, oh, they look like what I feel like.
Yeah.
As opposed
And
to
act like what I feel
as opposed to they look like what I should look like and feel like.
Mm.
So it wasn't aspirational, it was more realistic. And even though it was bad realistic or the worst realistic.
Was that the first time though?
Yeah. I mean, it started with Donahue and Oprah and all those people, but that was still only in the 80s.
I'm only because for me for this kind of stuff when I saw that on Jerry Springer, I was not shocked by it. The way you talk about it is like it was so different, and I wasn't shocked at that
I
at
just
all.
don't think that you were aware that that was what the media was before that.
Well, no.
'Cause it became normal real
No.
fast.
Oh, I see. I got you. Because to me, when I saw these people being that way on his show, they were very normal to me.
Yeah.
I was not surprised at their behavior.
So our sitcoms were slightly different from her sitcoms, right?
Okay.
Her sitcom was Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah.
The wife stays at home, she wears pearls and has a beautiful apron, and her hair's always right. You never see her in a bathrobe, I don't think. Ricky and Lucy sleep on separate beds, you know. I asked Mom, because I didn't know, I was like, in the 50s, did they sleep in separate beds? Like, did Grandma and Grandpa sleep in separate beds? And Mom was like, no! They did that for TV.
That seems like a sign of a bad relationship.
Right? So TV gave her generation an impression of perfection that she couldn't live up to. We had a generation of media where there were more relatable people. So even without Jerry Springer, we had Roseanne. We had Married with Children. Yeah. We had people showing negative relationships.
Those two shows were like the best shows.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, and there's a reason they were a hit because they were different.
They
it
were
wasn't
real.
Gilligan's
They were
Island.
real.
Yeah.
They were very real.
Yeah.
Even with the insanity that happened in those episodes, whatever. Specifically, Married with Children. Married with Children was far crazier than Roseanne.
Yeah.
But they were both so real and true to life.
And I wouldn't even say true to life. I would say true to the worst aspects of humanity.
I would say true to life. Fully, for me, that's where I'm. So that's where
like I would say Roseanne was realistic. Everybody's trying to be a good person, but we're failing, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to make their lives better, but they're not necessarily making it all the time. Married with Children was about reveling in our emotional filth as a society.
This is one of my most favorite shows ever. You know? Well, and I'm not insulted by you saying
okay.
that. I'm saying to me this is some true to life shit.
Well, and similar to It's Sunny in Philadelphia, where I have an appreciation for that show, and I but I still don't really want to watch it.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's just we have different preferences in the what we like to watch kind of a thing.
yeah,
and
I
how
want to watch
something is
something that's going to make
presented.
me feel better.
Yeah,
Not worse. So anyway, so the point is that like even growing up, I had a more realistic vision
entertainment and
of
stuff. Yeah,
the fact that my life was fucked up. I had after school specials, so I'm like, oh, I'm
Yep.
not the only one who was ever molested.
Yeah.
You know, I had
I forgot about those too.
Oprah, so that I was like, oh, I'm not the only one who was ever molested. I had Jenny Jones, so I was like, oh, I'm not the only one who was ever molested. You know, so I had growing up, I had reflections of life as I lived it, as opposed to what it was supposed to be. So, as well as what it was supposed to be, right? Because you still had like the Cosby Show that was
still had regular,
or
perfect shows and
even
whatever.
Alf, which their biggest problem was that they had an alien.
An alien, yeah.
That
And
kept
Alf was
trying to
awesome.
eat their cat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alf was awesome.
So I think given the lack of like, given the artifice that Mom was presented with, as this is what you need to act like all the time, she was a very, very real person, a very realistic person. And she genuinely did try to get help and always be better. But I think that that added to the weight of her problems was just that she didn't have those kind of
some kind of tools,
social tools until she got older. And so she was already like fucked up.
We said it a little bit as a part of times. The times
that we live in.
Because back then, again, you know, a woman reading a book.
Well,
electrocuted.
Yeah. Lobotomy. So just like my mental illness versus her mental illness, I'm able to cope with it better because I have people that I can look at who are like, you're not the only one. Here's how you deal with that. Here are some tools, you know, and at the very least, I know I'm not alone. I know I'm fucked up, but I know I'm not the only fucked up, and I'm not this isn't the only way that people can be fucked up, and I'm not the worst fucked up.
For that specifically, it's funny because for that specifically, you were saying how we have the tools and which we do, which is cool and fine and all, but for me, whenever I see these mentions of suicide hotline and all this stuff, and I'm like, what the fuck are they going to tell me that I haven't heard before?
Oh my god, nothing.
Yeah, right.
They're so unhelpful,
and that's not their fault.
No,
like they're trying. But every time I see it, I'm like, people act like this is a solution, and I'm like,
but it's not. All that they provide is a voice to sit in the darkness with you while you're,
which is fine.
Because part of the darkness is feeling like you're the only person who's ever felt that way, and
even when you know better.
But it's also feeling like even if I express this to my family and friends, they're just going to be worried. I don't want to worry anybody.
Yeah.
I just want to be emotionally honest for 5 fucking seconds. Yeah. You know, which a lot of us, especially me when I was at my most suicidal, was about me trying to present an image of seeming okay when I wasn't.
Well, now here's an interesting thing about that too, because me and my sister, each of us, have gone to each other, telling each other, I want to die. And it's not fucking easy.
Yeah.
Because not only is it hard to say to someone that you love so deeply, but you also know how much it sucks to hear it.
I want to abandon you now.
I mean, I don't see it that way, but it's the pain. It's the pain that I hear. You hear the abandonment. I just hear the pain.
Well, no, I just think if I was going to say that, it'd be like,
it's a difference in the way that we... that's just a perception thing. It's a perception thing. So we do have different perceptions on the same thing that we can totally relate to, you know? It's kind of like one of the things I actually... Even the same thing with our mom. Like, we have 2 different reactions and 2 different perceptions of the death.
Yeah.
For different reasons.
Well, we react differently when like your reaction to me saying I want to kill myself is like, yep, me too. And my reaction to you saying you want to kill yourself is, well, if I have to live, you have to.
Yes, you fucking bitch.
People, I would say this because like the argument against suicide is like you're selfish if you can't kill yourself, and my argument is, why would you want me to live in this much pain? Who's the selfish fucking one?
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
But I mean, I do continue on. One of the reasons when it gets really dark that I do continue on is because it's not even like I'm trying to find a reason to live. It's just they pop into my head, and it's always like you and like other people I love, and I'm just like, I don't want to make them sad.
Well, that makes me feel so much worse.
Which is funny because one of the reasons that I want to kill myself a lot of times is because I feel like I'm just letting them down. I might as well not be alive.
See, and then there's that, because we are so different when it comes to our suicidal thoughts, and because I hate to say this, but I do not think like that at all. Not even the tiniest bit, even close. I don't think, oh, if I kill myself, my poor sister.
Fucking better start thinking about it. I better be added to the list.
I don't. You know what I think of when I think of my sister? I think my Rolodex of passwords is right here.
No.
That is literally what I think of.
That's
I'm like,
the first thing I'm gonna burn when you die.
If I were to kill myself, she'd at least be able to log into my accounts. That's exactly what I think every time.
You know what's so funny is I probably wouldn't even think of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, right? But it would be there, though. You'd eventually come around to it if you had to clean my shit up or whatever. It's funny because it was like, this was a few days back. I've been banned from Twitter for a while for talking about food, crackers. And one of the last tweets I remember seeing was this guy was like, I can't remember how he put it. I wish I could remember, because it was something about, I really wish I could remember, because it was about like taking a drug that would just kill you, a suicidal pill, whatever. I really wish I could remember how he put it, because I was like, yeah, that would really help, because then I wouldn't have to leave a bloody mess. So that's why I'm trying to remember how I put it, because that's what I thought of. I was like, oh, a pill? And then it was really funny, because immediately after I responded to him about the bloody mess, I responded to him. I was like, yeah, it'd be so much easier. And then I thought about it, and I was like, dude, people take sleeping pills all the fucking time and kill themselves or whatever on that shit. I'm like, that's what I need to do. Just get myself some pills and OD on that shit.
Melatonin is not going to do
no.
No, I tried it. It didn't do anything.
Oh my gosh, you crazy girl. So this is what she says, and I have to react that way, because apparently she has made multiple attempts of suicide.
Well, I wasn't, in that case, I knew that it wouldn't kill me.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to see what would happen if I ate an entire bottle. Yeah. Because it was chewable.
Oh my gosh. Some of them taste really good.
All that happened was I had a really solid 8 hours, and then I was in a funk for 3 days. That's it.
Okay. So, I don't want to get into that right now, because, oh my gosh. That's a whole nother level of darkness.
Okay, so back to Madeline.
No.
We're only backing up a little bit.
It was still the same thing. The pills,
Oh, the suicide pill?
Yeah, but screw it. I did have a thought, because it was more funniness to me. But anyways, okay, we can get back to... I'm interested... What, did you have anything specific about Madeline? Because I remember we were talking about Robin. You had an update on Robin, and...
Then I switched to Madeline. Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. Myra might have to be a different conversation.
Okay.
Where are we?
Now nearly an hour.
Oh, my God.
We're at an hour.
We're over an hour. Okay. Let's finish up with Madeline, then we'll do Robin, and we'll do Myra in another conversation.
Well, we've done a lot of Robin this one, too.
Mostly done with Robin, but we do have to get back to her. Okay. So I was friends with Madeline for like 10 years, and it was only like a month ago that she like texted me and was like, seems like not interested in being friends. And this wasn't the first time we'd had this conversation, but somehow I'd managed to save the relationship every other time.
This happens so many times.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know all the details, or I might need to be reminded of it, but my sister has been through this with Madeline so many times.
One time, I just, ended the relationship
This
myself.
is why I called her a psycho bitch. One of many reasons.
And then she called me, and by the way,
I remember I kept telling you, why are you fucking friends with her? And my sister would be, she's so awesome.
No, I wouldn't. I'd be like, she's not that bad. Plus, then I didn't want to tell you what irritated me about her, because then you just have extra ammunition.
Yeah.
But she also came over and cleaned our entire kitchen.
Yeah. She could be a very nice person. I liked her. I didn't hate her.
She's very generous.
She was very weird.
I would just say the emotional immaturity of her constantly needing validation means that we're not good match in terms of the kind of relationship we can have that will make us both happy. Because my happiest is assuming you're fine.
Yeah.
That's it. That's our interaction. I assume you're fine.
My sister's a horrible person.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Oh my
So,
gosh, she's the best.
because here's, and I was telling Myra this the other night too. I was like, sometimes I don't want to answer your text or the phone because I just can't because
You know, you would
I'm
have
too
you would end up in
depressed.
a conversation.
But sometimes I don't answer it because I'm finally feeling okay, and I don't want even the fraction of the
That's horrible.
possibility
That
that talking
sucks.
to you is going to bring me down.
See, that's a terrible reason.
But it's
Because
true.
then you're assuming that whatever conversation you have would be depressing,
Well,
which is very weird.
it's not an assumption. Again, it's the possibility, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
It's just that like sand. Okay, so I read somewhere that one tiny dust particle in a motherboard will destroy the entire computer.
Mm-hmm. Can.
And to me, like that's the worry. Is like I'm gonna talk to this. I finally feel okay. I'm gonna talk to this person. There'll be something that they say that'll trigger a dust particle. It'll get in my brain and fucking ruin my motherboard.
That sucks.
And so that's why I just don't want to risk it because I feel okay so rarely that I'm not gonna risk it, even as much as I love you.
And
As much as I want to talk to you, as much as I want to catch up with you, as much as I want to know what's going on in your life, I'm not risking it either because I feel awful and don't want to feel worse, or I feel good and I don't want to feel bad.
and this right here, literally what you just described is now it's I wouldn't say it's 100% the same, but I would say generally speaking, this is also why we don't converse. 'Cause
Probably.
even I have that same thought.
You do?
Oh, I told you fucking today I was struggling with wanting to talk to you.
Yeah, but I didn't know why.
It was because I was in such not in my darkest spots or anything, but I was in a dark place. And I don't this is it's why it's such a pain in the ass to be so honest with people or to be honest with people or to try to be honest with people because that place fucking sucks and nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, also you don't want to drag somebody into your sunken place. You know?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%, yes, that. So, part of that is, and part of that thing is, I even talked about this before. I think it was the one we just recorded earlier. It was like sometimes I would stream just to be able to get some sense of sanity with my friends. And I know that what I was offering as the person that's supposed to be the entertainer was not what they needed.
Yeah.
But I needed a fucking
That's
connection.
not why they were showing.
Yeah. So I think a part of that is even with us, between us, when we want to talk to each other, we can't just talk to each other.
Yeah. Well,
So-
like, because you were like, do you want to chat? And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, but what if I can't make it a good conversation? And then you were like, you had already said okay. So I was like, he already said okay. And like, I didn't know.
We both had conflicts today
Yeah.
in our own minds of
And
why
even
we weren't
knowing
sure.
that the last time we did this, we ended up talking for 3 hours because we had such a good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just, we've had enough interactions with human beings to know that it doesn't always work out that way.
That I can understand and agree with, but it's not just the interactions with human beings, it's our own mindset. It's where we're at in our own mind.
Yeah.
As like I said, is why it was such
Okay, but that's the thing is like people always say, well, you should talk about it and you'll feel better.
I know that's
I
the word.
have
That's
mistakenly followed
literally
that advice.
That is literally the same thing as just be happy. It's nonsense. It's complete nonsense.
Because it depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Like you can't just talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Like I would be at.
That's why psychiatrists exist, people.
Yeah, but even then, like, oh my god.
And my sister told me this was like a month ago. I don't know, but I didn't even know this about until you told me recently, and it was either earlier this year because we're still in the new year, but I think it was like a month ago. Might have been a couple months ago, but I was talking to my sister about this similar stuff. We were talking about like, well, that's why we have psychiatrists because they're trained for it. They specifically go out of their way. It's what they want to do, and which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But even they kill themselves because they're depressed. And on top of their own depression, they're dealing with other people's depression. Mm-hmm. They literally kill themselves while they're supposed to be there helping the depressed people.
Yeah.
So this is not an easy thing. And when people tell you to just go talk about it, you slap that son of a bitch right in their stupid face. All right?
Because they're not specific about who you talk about it with, right?
And even if there is somebody to talk to, it's not a magical moment where you can just literally just talk to somebody like they say. It's the same thing with it's why I said, like, when I see people being like, here's a suicide hotline if you're feeling depressed. I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like,
It's not if you're feeling depressed. If you're feeling suicidal.
yeah.
Like
Well, I mean,
literally
that's the same thing to
their
me.
whole job is to let you say the things that you're too afraid to say to your family because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Like it's all the reasons that you want to die. You don't want to say that because there are people in your life who are invested in you being alive, and so you don't want to say this is why I'm not.
That's actually, you know what? That makes me think of, we just talked about this, and I was like, dude, I didn't want to upload our previous episode. I haven't done it yet. We just recorded it, but at the end, I turned into a whiny bitch, and I didn't mean to.
You weren't,
and I wasn't trying to be ungrateful or anything. But what you just said is kind of like that too, where like I'm trying to just share my thoughts and feelings on a certain topic, and I'm not trying to offend somebody.
Yeah.
Right. But who the fuck do I like, and what's funny about that is interesting because popular streamers, YouTubers, whatever, will tell you, don't tell your audience what you really think. And I'm just like, these are the only people I want to tell what I really think. Like, what the fuck are you talking? So I get it because I do understand it. Like, I do. It's the same thing what we have here. Like, what we're talking about, this whole, like, you can't just go to anybody and tell them you want to kill yourself.
Most people act alarmed when you do that. That was my
Seems
favorite.
like a pretty normal response.
My favorite thing about working at comedy club,
unless people feel the same way, and then they're just like, yeah,
was that like you could literally say that, and 80% of people would be like, "Yeah, me too," or "Ha ha ha," and then the other 20% would be like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" And I was like, I can get that from anybody. You're supposed to be a comedian.
That is so funny to me. And that's also because of that kind of comedians. One of the most biggest reasons that people become comedians is because they're unhappy.
Well,
and they want to make other people happy.
That's part of it, definitely.
It's one of the major ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you learn that you're good at making people happy, and you making other people happy makes you happy.
Yeah.
But you don't figure out how to make yourself happy.
It doesn't take away your... but it does help, for sure. It's kind of like a distraction more than a solution.
I mean, I definitely got... Okay, so what my intention when I started doing stand-up was not to make other people happy. It was for me to be able to say all the shit I wasn't allowed to say. Like, I'm suicidal. I miss my dead mom. I don't care that I'm fat. Get over it. Like, all these things that would be impolite to say to, like, regular people.
And that's why you're not a comedian.
No, I'm not a comedian because of the stage fright.
Agoraphobia and stuff.
But being able to say that was like, I can get away with saying whatever I want as long as I make it funny. So I can talk about what really matters to me in this specific setting. And what it did was it made me realize if I can say this on stage, I can say this in real life, which is backwards, I think, from how most people operate. But I was like, if I can say this in front of a bunch of people I don't know, I can say it to my friends. I can express myself. And so I started being able to express myself more off stage. I could say the darker thoughts. I could say the bigger worries.
That's so... Because I remember I was telling you this before, which is very interesting, because you have a different approach and experience through that yourself. Because I remember when I was young, I told you this before many times, like when I started telling people the truth and being honest, I pushed them away. Because and I don't blame them, because at the same time, and that's how I see it, that's my perspective, they might not see it the way, and I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't see it the same way. That's just, I can remember that. I can remember back to when I started telling people the truth constantly, which was basically only that I wanted to die and everything sucked. I couldn't help it, because I got past the point, I was so sick and tired of faking happiness, pretty much just faking happiness. And I just started telling the truth. And they, at first it was fine. It didn't bother them, right? But when you tell somebody, when that's the only answer and the only thing you ever have to say, it's just like, dude, I can't fix it. I can't help you. I'm sorry, but what the fuck, like, shut up already.
But you don't say it to be fixed. You say it because you're just being polite and answering the question they asked you.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, so if you want to make it about you fixing me, then that's about you. That's not about me.
No, that I can understand too. But no, I mean, I just can't blame people for when that's all you ever have to say.
So again, like
to separate.
It's about who you say it to. Because, like I said, I had an environment where I could say that, and people would just be fine with it. Most people, not everybody. Yeah. You also had to be careful about the staff. Like, you can't say it to the servers, because then they get concerned. But you say it to another comedian, and they're like, I totally get it.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing, yeah. So, no. We did have more, but I think we can save it for next time.
No, I'm not done.
Oh. I'm sorry. I thought you were. Didn't we finish with Madeline?
No.
Oh,
you keep interrupting me.
Okay. Well, that's because everything kind of, my bad. Okay, let's go, Madeline.
Okay, Madeline. Okay. So, I just think our personalities aren't suited to friendship. And then also where we are in our lives, right? Because she's still in a place where she needs constant validation. And, like, to the point where we'd be hanging out.
Oh.
Did I tell you this already?
No, but you know what I just remembered? She worked on a suicide hotline.
She does, yeah.
Isn't that fucking hilarious?
Okay, so here's the thing.
Dude, come on. I remember when my sister first told me that, I was like, you can't be serious.
She trying to talk them into it?
Oh my gosh, dude. I was like, no way. Because to me, I'm just like, there's no way she could properly handle
I kind of had that same reaction because I was suicidal for much of our friendship.
Alright, so go ahead. I'm sorry,
But I think she learned a lot at that job, first of all, but also they train you to what to say. And she said, I learned on this job, well, just in the training, you have to sit with people in their silence and not try to fix it. Mm-hmm. And then she found herself still trying to fix people's problems and then getting in trouble at work. Yeah.
I mean, even we all want to help people and save people. I
also think there should be different kinds of suicide hotlines for what mood you're in. Sometimes you want
that actually makes sense.
Sometimes you want somebody to tell you what to do. Sometimes you want somebody to sit with you.
I would never call any of them, but that makes sense.
Sometimes you just want somebody to pretend to be Steve, because you're really mad at Steve. You want to do a little bit of role play. Say, Steve, this is how I feel.
Role play.
But there's not. Their whole job is to get you, let you say your darkest thoughts, get you to a place where now that you've said it out loud, maybe it's not. I always think about it like this, like a bad thought in your body is a big thing in a small space, but when you let it out into the world, it's a small thing in a big space. Because the world is very large. It's full of lots of bodies. And there's all this empty space besides those bodies, right? There's large parts of the earth that nobody's ever been to. It's a big world. So when you let out a bad thought, you're letting it out into a big world. It doesn't feel as big when you let it out than when you keep it in. And so that's how I think about it. But anyway, back to Madeline. So working at the suicide hotline. At first, when she told me, I was kind of horrified. But she learned really quickly. And then she even talked to me later. She was like, I realized that when we were, like, after your mom really first died, you were in crisis. And I wanted to be like, bitch, I've been in crisis this whole time. I'm still in crisis. But I was like, yeah. But you didn't realize. And she was like, and I was saying to you, like, just feel better. Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, that's not what I should have said. I should have just I should have sat in the darkness with you. I was like, yeah. So I'm glad that she's learning that now, but it was frustrating at the time. But the point is just that, like, we'll be hanging out and she'll be like, just out of nowhere, we'll just be hanging out. And she'll just be like, give me 3 compliments right now. And I was like, she's like, 3 compliments and 3 criticisms. And I'm just like, oh God, how can I make the criticisms as gentle as possible so we don't have to keep talking about it forever?
See, now this is how she is, but if it was me.
You're a psycho bitch. That's number 1.
I'll be straight with you, man. I will be straight with this is why that's a part of what we've talked about many times, and I'll tell people, like, when I tell something to my friends that will offend them, it's because I trust our friendship. And that can be very problematic. So.
Well, I've never been an honest person in terms of, like, being able to criticize people. Even now, I still have a hard time, but I am better at it. Like, especially if somebody asks me directly, then I can be like, yeah, There's kind of a problem. But it's hard for me. I'm bad at confrontation. I would rather find people that I have no conflict with or very little conflict with than somebody that I have to have those kind of hard conversations with. And she's the opposite. She wants the conversation to be as hard as possible, which is good. It's a tribute to her.
It's funny because that makes it, just from that small description, it makes me think we'd be very compatible.
What, you and her or me and you?
No, me and her, yeah. But dude, she's a nut job, man.
She's really not. She's really just like an insecure girl trying to figure out how to be the best person she can. But the problem is just that I'm not. I think that the issue was when we first met, I had made rules about like not being agoraphobic anymore. I was like, I'm not going to be agoraphobic anymore. Here are my rules. If somebody asks me to hang out, I have to say yes, even if I don't want to.
Bastard, you were so dumb.
If anybody asks for help, I'm going to say yes. You know, if I can do it, obviously.
This was you're trying to solve or help yourself.
Yeah, and like if somebody hurts my feelings, because I was very overly sensitive, if somebody hurts my feelings, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt. If I can see where they're coming from, I have to forgive them. Those were my rules.
Those are good rules.
Yeah, but the problem is like when I started hanging out with her, she needed so much help because she was very new to the country. She didn't really speak English. Then she went back to school for some reason, like barely knowing English, and she didn't want to take the ESL classes first, but she did, and that helped a little bit. But then I helped her through her first like couple of semesters of school, and then I was at the point where she had asked for so much help, and I was going to school and working and like trying to figure out how to grieve and all that kind of stuff. So I was finally like, this next semester, you need to be able to go to the school, like tutors or whatever, like you have to stop coming to me. I literally can't help you anymore. And that was when we stopped being friends as much. And then we had a big fight, and then I called her a bitch and hung up on her. And then she called back, and then she was like, "But I love you." And I was like, "I love you too." And we both started crying. And then every time we've had a conversation since then, she's brought up that conversation. She's like, if I never called you back, we wouldn't be friends. And I'm just like, yeah.
You've told me that before.
What a fucking relief that would
be.
Why did I answer the phone the second time?
You know, it's funny because...
No, I'm joking. Like, she's been a really good friend. It's just that our personalities aren't suited for each other, you know?
And the way you approach, I think it's less about personality, just the way you approach things and the way you experience life.
Yeah. And like, she really does want to be a good person. She really does want to help people, but it's also because she's trying to earn worth in the world. She's trying to earn value, and she doesn't understand that she already has it. Like, it's inherent. You can't earn it. You can't get more. It's not like money.
13 days. That's what she's trying.
It was 9 days.
Oh, was it 9?
9 days.
Somebody else had 13 days then.
Somebody had 13 days. The Meryl Streep had 3 days. She only had 3 days because she was so good.
That's what we're referring to real quick. Check out a movie called Defending Your Life.
Yeah, with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 9 days. Just that chef's smile is so sweet when he says it. 9 days. Okay.
But you were just having a tough time telling her that she couldn't come to you anymore.
Yeah. So anyway, at a certain point, she got frustrated, and then we had a fight, and then we stopped being friends, and then we started being friends again.
That was on and off a lot throughout your entire
that
friendship.
That was the only time that like we really had a huge fight, and I was like, okay, we're not friends anymore. That was actually after I started hanging out with flappers, and I found people much easier to be around, and I was like, because this is the mindfuck. When you only have one friend, and that friend needs constant validation, you think, oh, having friends is exhausting.
That might have been. I mean, I don't know. You might have been her only English-speaking friend.
No, okay. Here's the thing about Madeline is she makes friends really easy.
Okay. But
she loses them very easy too. Because her expectations are so high.
It's so... Because that's what my problem was. Because I could tell there were things about her I liked. Like a lot. She seemed really cool. But then the way she acted most of the time was just like... The only thing I could think of is psycho bitch. Like, I want to put it nicely. It's just such an easier way to put it without having to explain in detail, like, you know, all the things. You know, because I don't hate her. I really don't. But I also, in a way, can't stand her.
here's the thing too,
and I barely know her.
But she's gotten a lot better. Like when I first met her, she believed every stereotype about every like race.
Which I
mean, she doesn't anymore.
After what we've experienced, and even here's the thing, I can understand that because, and it sucks, but as an American and what we've been trained to be our whole lives, and in 2020, like I've always recognized racism being a normal part of our life, but I did not know how it was still so deeply systemic.
Yeah.
I did not know. Now I knew there was a part of it. Like I knew that, of course, yes, it has always been obvious to me that police will treat black people differently. But I did not know exactly how deep it has been and how it has never ended.
Yeah, and we talked about, I think it was in the last episode too, where if you weren't taught the real history in like elementary school through high school, you're taught the lies, and then in college they teach you the truth. So in college,
if you take that class,
it was when she got to college. You have to.
Oh,
it's like part of the requirements. Okay. It's like social studies or history or whatever.
Okay.
So she started out like really racist, and then she took these classes, and I remember her coming to me and being like, "Did you know blah blah blah?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've been trying to tell you that for years."
You know what's weird to me about that is, now it sucks because, oh God, it's so funny how we always end up in conversations like this. But I can never, I've said this before many times, I could never understand racism or sexism.
Yeah.
They make no damn sense.
So here's the thing about racism and sexism is the appeal is because life is hard and we as human beings crave definitive, concrete answers. And so if you're if you're saying you're a child, right? You're saying life is hard. Why did I lose out on this and this other person got it? And they say, well, that person's black, and so they get special treatment because everybody's trying to affirmative action, whatever.
Oh, I was gonna say, because like I have never felt that way, but I do remember, and I still, in a small, very small way, think that whole you have to have to hire someone because of their race. I think as a law, it's stupid. Mm-hmm. I think it only makes sense in the fine print because in case someone has to sue over it. Mm-hmm. But the way I think of it is, if you're hiring somebody, race shouldn't even be a factor.
It shouldn't, but
like, it shouldn't even be on the sheet.
So it's kind of like
it still is.
But it's kind of like Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, which is because people are being discarded as possibilities due to their race. We have to add them back in.
Yeah,
So that's
that's what I mean though. That's what I mean is. That's why when I first heard about that, like it's affirmative action, right? Uh-huh. When I first heard about that, I was like, that's kind of stupid. Like, why is that even a requirement? And it's mostly because, for me, is naturally does not make sense for that to be needed in the first freaking place.
Yeah.
So that's why the world is just so maddening and insane to me.
Again, it's about how you're raised, and it's about whether you're willing to accept that there are a lot of gray areas in life, or if you want to be a black and white thinker.
What's funny that you say, I'm a very black and white thinker.
I know you are.
I am. You're a racist, you're an idiot. Straight up, I don't care.
There's not a lot of nuance in you,
you're an idiot.
But there's no malice either. And so if you were ever told the reason for your unhappiness is this group of people, first of all, you're like, no, it's because I'm a giant piece of shit and deserve to be unhappy. But secondly, you're not going to hate other people, an entire group of other people, just because you're told to.
Oh, yeah, no,
because you're contrarian, and most people are conformists.
And okay, so here's the thing. It's so funny because we use these labels, and I get that. Like, the whole label thing does make sense to me. We talked about it in the previous episode. Like, even time is a label. Mm-hmm. An apple is a label.
It's a measurement.
We name this stuff.
Yeah.
We name it.
We name everything.
Yeah. So it's nearly impossible. It basically, I mean, I say nearly because I have an understanding, sort of, but basically it's pretty much impossible for me to understand conforming.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why would you do that?
It's just not how you're wired. You're just not wired that
way. It's like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like sexism and racism. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
You're the one that, if we were cave people, You'd be killed by the tiger first because you don't know how to work with people.
I would go live with the tiger. Killed by the tiger? What the hell's wrong with you? I would go live with the tiger and
All right,
you know.
Mowgli. I prefer tigers to people.
Yeah, probably. I mean, your first thought is you'd go get killed by a tiger. I mean, I'd befriend the tiger, you know. Although, yeah,
So I'm not saying conformist is a bad thing. I'm saying that that's how we have survived as that's how we survive as civilization.
it shouldn't be though.
We
'Cause
have a
it's
natural
horrible.
need to want to work with each other.
Oh no, that's not conformism though.
Conformity, yeah.
Yeah, that to me that's not conforming. That's just being a decent human being.
Yeah, yeah, I know. When it goes too far, it's conforming. When it's when it's too far in the opposite direction, it's contrary.
What a trip! I hate this world. I don't belong here.
So that's the thing about black and white thinking is you're just like, oh, it's too difficult. I don't want to think about it. But you're still not a hateful person.
It's not. It's. I don't think that it's too difficult. It's just that it doesn't make sense. I can't make sense of it. To me, it's not logical to look at somebody's color of their skin and be like, ah, you're my slave.
Okay, so
or I hate you because of your color of your skin. Like, it just doesn't
Right.
make sense.
but part of it is conditioning, right? We were
No, that I understand.
we
Yes.
weren't conditioned to believe that way.
Okay, yeah. That I understand. Yeah.
So especially when you're young, it's harder to fight that conditioning, and especially if you've never been exposed to the group of people that you're supposed to hate. If you've always been segregated,
I
or
really don't think though. Like at some point, if you were on your own, even let's say, and I'm just curious because let's say your family raised you to be a racist.
Yeah.
It's just a part of it. It's not even like as one example that they are not telling you to kill them. They're just saying you're better.
we're
than
better
them.
than you. Yeah.
Because these are two different things.
Uh-huh.
But and let's say though, so your family's taught this to you for a long time, and then eventually one day you meet one, and you just chat,
Uh-huh.
and you like that person very much.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't you naturally just realize you're not better than that person?
I think that you realize it before you have that conversation with that person. But again, with people
Well, I
wanting...
mean, if you hadn't, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Okay, so no, what happens is you make an exception. So like Seth Meyers in that skit where he's like white women and my friend,
Yeah.
Like that's what happens is you're like, oh well, this one black person
God, I
is the
hate this
anomaly.
world. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad we weren't raised like that, man. Because I can't imagine what it's like growing up like that.
Because Sarah's super racist, but there are people that she works with who she likes them specifically.
Yeah. Yes, and that's something that I could never understand. I'm
Yeah.
like, you have, because she really those specific people that are of other.
You make exceptions.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's
If you
just
want
like,
to have, if you want to,
how can you be fine with that? You think this person's fine, but for some reason all the others are bad. Like, what
it's
the hell sense does that
it's
make?
the Good Samaritan syndrome.
It was so stupid.
So I think Samarita was a place where only bad people lived, and it was probably like a racism thing back then. But this person found they were on the road and they needed help, and a good Samaritan helped them.
One of the good ones.
The only good one. There's always one that can be good. So anyway, back to Madeline.
Okay.
So so throughout the years of we've been friends for like 10 years. And she
Very close friends.
Yeah, and then so I started hanging out at Flappers and realizing there are people that I can be with who don't constantly need me to tell them how great they are. Or like criticize, like fix them or criticize them or help them or whatever. Like they just are who they are and I am who I am and we can be in the same room together, period. And it's fun. Yay. And I should say, like, I never really had a friend before Madeline, like that I spent a lot of time with.
Yeah.
And I was not an honest person with Madeline, so I don't blame her for expecting me to be a certain way when I was putting my best foot forward when we met and presenting a version of myself that was
you
not
wanted
complete.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not fake, but it wasn't complete. It was like maybe like the top of the iceberg, tip of the iceberg. That's an actual saying. So it's like 10% of me, 90% of me is pure fury. And then 10% of me wants people to be happy, and so I'd show her, the 10% and then she didn't know about the other part. And even when I would tell her there's this whole other part under the water, she'd be like, no, but you're such a great person. And I'm like, I'm really not, and I really, like, I'm really not. And
Yes, you are.
I mean, 10% of me is that 10% is still good, and I try to suppress the 90. But, and the thing too is that the more authentic I've learned to be, the more relaxed I've learned to be and just like be who I am, the more that ratio has changed, the more of the tip of the iceberg that's above the water, like the difference has shrunk. Like I feel like I'm more of a good person percentage wise, but I don't feel like I have to pretend as much. And so I don't have to smile at every person that I pass on the street. I don't have to like say yes if somebody wants to hang out and I don't feel
I think
like
a
it.
part of that is wanting to.
But I never wanted to. That was why I had to make the rule.
Be happy around people?
I was more concerned with what their image of me was than genuinely wanting them to be happy or me to be happy. I was more concerned with, so
I get it.
Part of being codependent is like, I'm not okay if you're not okay. So if you don't seem okay, I have to fix you, and then I can be okay. Then I can relax. Because if you're not fucked up and angry, then you're not going to hurt me. But if you seem angry, I think you're going to take it out on me.
Very fucked up. That sounds like a defense mechanism.
Oh, that's definitely PTSD. Yeah. That's what Dina taught me. Dina taught me, and by the way, I have update on her too. So we're going to have to do another episode, but not tonight because I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I always had to make sure she was okay. That was the only time I could fucking relax, was when she wasn't in a rage. So I grew up thinking that was what everybody was like. And especially what happens when you isolate yourself is you're not meeting different kinds of people. All you have in your memory is the fucking asshole, So, and just assuming that everybody's like that. When I went out and finally got a job when I was 27, I was like, why are most people chill? Like, these people all seem chill. Nobody's yelled at me. Nobody's tried to get me fired. Like, what is up with these people? They all seem nice. And it took me a while to, like, realize, oh, not everybody is my family, And I should, like, that's included, like, because, I don't know. But anyway, the point is, Madeline always wanted me to be a better friend than I felt comfortable with. And I always knew that if I knew her long enough, she would realize that, and then she would reject me. And so I just tried to avoid her because I just didn't want that to happen. I just figured, like, when we first started hanging out, I just figured she'd get bored and, like, be done with me. And that didn't happen for 10 years. So, so she finally, like, messaged me one day, and I had just been sleeping all day. So she messaged me, like, in the morning, I hope you have a good day. And then I woke up at like 4:00 in the afternoon, and she was like, it just seems like you're not interested in having a friendship with me, a two-way friendship, she said. So I wrote her back. I wrote her back, and I was like, it was very formal. I was like, I understand that you've heard this all before, but I've been struggling with the depression and anxiety, and I don't feel good to talk to anybody. And I'm sorry that you take this personally. If you need to find a friend that you feel like is more reciprocal, a friendship that is more reciprocal, I understand, etc. Like, it was very short, but that's what I said. And then I didn't hear from her after that, and haven't heard from her after that. Probably won't ever hear from her again.
Well, I don't think you told me that part. I think it's cool that you explained yourself to her.
I mean, I tried, and I tried when I was struggling at Age of Learning. I was struggling so hard, and I was just like, I emailed her, and I was like, if you're going to be talking to people who are severely depressed, I need to describe to you what it's like. It's like swimming in the ocean, and you're surrounded by all these sharks who are constantly biting you and trying to bite you. We're all humanity. We're all in the same ocean. Every single one of us is in the same ocean. We have all the same sharks trying to bite us. We're all trying to stay safe and nurse our bleeding limbs and shit. But some of us under the water have balls and chains. We have anchors attached to us by chains. And so even though from the top it looks like we're all doggy paddling the same and trying to survive the same, but some people are just swimming freely and they're just going faster, and you look at them and you're like, oh, well, they just must be naturally faster. No, they don't have fucking chains tied to an anchor around their fucking ankles, but it looks like they're just happier. Because she had told me some people just don't want to be happy. And I'm just
I
like,
hate that. Oh God, that's the same thing as just be happy.
yeah.
Some people don't want to be happy. Some people. Oh, I don't mean to interrupt. Just trying to remind me. There was the one person I think I remember telling you about this. It was like a couple of years ago, probably, but I forget exactly the full conversation. There was a few responses between me and somebody else talking about depression, and then their answer was like, some people just don't want to be helped.
Yeah.
And I was like,
who doesn't want to be helped?
And this was a person that said they knew what it was like.
Ugh.
And I was like, if you knew what it was like, you would not have said that shit.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when people say just be happy. I was like, if you know what it's like, you wouldn't fucking say that.
People say that happiness is a choice.
You wouldn't say that if you knew what it was like. You just wouldn't say it.
And
it's so stupid.
People who say that don't understand that. I mean, I believe that happiness is a choice when sometimes, and then there are other times when your brain takes over and decides that there has never been any such thing as happiness.
Like it's quite possible to change your mental state. It's possible. But it's such a small, tiny.
Here's the thing. There's times when you can, right?
Yeah.
You can get yourself out of a funk. You can go from being in a bad mood to being in a good mood. And you learn the tools of that. Your Skittles fell over. You learn the tools of those. And then if you're a nice person, you share those tools with other people. And they're like, oh, hey, that was so helpful. Thank you. And then they use those tools. And even though they get situationally depressed when something bad happens to them, and they use those tools to get themselves to feel better, that doesn't always help somebody with clinical depression. If you have a chemical in your brain that just kicks into gear and decides that nothing will ever be okay again, then that's just something you have to endure until that chemical runs its course, and then you can be okay again, you know? And I think that the testament to your strength is how many times you can survive that chemical. And my friend Peter Marr, after Robin Williams died, said that you win every battle except for the last one.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, that is something that I always keep in mind is like, yeah, there's going to be more battles. But I've won every one of them so far.
I'm just curious because this is this specific thing as far as the chemicals and stuff. We will always talk about depression. It's always going to come up no matter what, right? It just is.
For me it's chemicals. Maybe for you it's demons. I don't know.
That's what I was curious. So I would love to save that for another time. I'm curious. Were we done with Madeline still?
Almost.
Okay.
So
I thought there might be a little more.
So here's the thing about like having only one friend for 10 years, basically, right? And it's not like I didn't have other friends or friendly acquaintances.
She was the main.
She was
most
my
important
main like
friend.
social circle. She was my social corner, my social dot. Is when you have somebody who's with that particular personality, and you don't have other people to compare them to. So all I had was you and mom and like maybe a handful of other people, right? And I understood that like not every relationship is like this, but I also felt bad and wrong when I couldn't reach out. If I was feeling good, I didn't want to risk it. If I was feeling bad, I didn't want to spread it, right?
Yeah.
And then also there have been times when I've been in a bad mood and talked to her and ended up feeling worse. Like you tell somebody that I feel like shit, this is scary, I don't know what's going on, I don't know how to feel better, and they say, well, happiness is a choice. You just need, some people just don't want to be happy.
I want to slap them every damn time.
So that doesn't make me feel better, so I'm not going to go to her for advice, right? I'm going to only want to talk to her when I feel okay, which is a very small window of time. And then do I want to waste that, or do I want to ruin it if she happens to say something that's going to piss me off? Or hurt my feelings, you know? So that's why it was hard for me to talk to her. But it's hard for me to talk to anybody. You know, Cherie's one of my favorite people. You know, you've heard me talk about Robin Cherie a million times.
And I barely know her. She's so great.
Yeah. And so my favorite people, I still don't want to reach out to because I still have that, like, I don't want to ruin their day if they're happen to be okay right now. I don't want to ruin that. And then also if I happen to be okay, I don't want to ruin that, you know? Like, so I just want them to be okay over there and I'll be whatever I am over here. Like, I think it's narcissistic. Like that's like the clinical term for like that kind of thinking where you can just like not need social interaction. Like, it's part of it is narcissism. I'm not saying I'm a bad person. I'm just saying that that's a narcissistic tendency to be like self-reliant.
Well, I mean, that's part of the wanting to label something when there's so much more to it
Yeah.
than a general label.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to take the term narcissist back. If I am one, then I'm just going to say, I don't mean anything. I don't mean any harm. Some of the times that I feel like the most suicidal is when I feel like I hurt somebody's feelings by accident. And that's one of the reasons I want to stay away from people, because I don't want to hurt anybody on purpose or by accident. So, okay. So the point is, I finally talked to Robin, after you and I recorded that podcast. And I said, I appreciate your patience with me and understanding that I can't reach out. Like, I saw that message on Facebook a few days ago and I just wasn't able to like even text you. And she was like, I totally get it. I totally get it. Yeah. And I was just like, so that's the mindfuck of like dealing with somebody who thinks that friendship means that you have to be in constant contact and you have to be for them through their rough times and be with them for the good times. And like, there are all these rules.
Well, that's what sucks, and we've talked about this before too, is I did not know this. I did not know that it was even possible for people not to understand what it's like to feel this way.
Yeah.
And Madeline might be one of those people, even though she learned and she's told you she was learning stuff. But when you don't, it's same when you understand what someone tells you and the difference between that and experiencing what someone tells you.
Not just that, but she's always only experienced situational depression. So she finally experienced situational depression, and like to an extreme that she had never felt before. And she finally had some compassion and empathy.
Because that's what it's so weird to me, because I'm always like, there's got to be at least one time. At least once somebody knew what it was like. But it's if it was only one time, it would also be easier to forget.
Yeah, well, because it wears off. Like that humility wears off and the empathy wears off, because it's only when you're reminded of how dark it can get that you recognize that it gets that dark for other people too. You think I was in a really dark place and then I got myself out of it, instead of understanding that course of depression ran its course. Like that, it happened and it went away on its own. You didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like maybe you used some of your tools to try to get yourself, like shovel some of that dirt away from you. But the most of it was just that it ran its course. You felt shitty and then you felt better.
I think.
And you assume that you're the one who made you feel better. And so you assume that if somebody else feels shitty, that they can make themselves feel better, and they're just choosing not to.
I mean, for me, on that specific topic is, I remember for me, it's kind of a situational thing. When I was in my early 30s, I think, was when I started writing more, and I started not writing in the first place, because I'd been writing for a while, but that was when I started really more leaning professionally writing, and I was like, oh my gosh, now I have a purpose. And there was a little while, it was a short period, where I kept thinking, man, am I never gonna? I remember thinking something like this, like I don't think I'll ever feel that depression ever again, the one that I had. It would, because I was still depressed, but I was not in that constant every second of every day hating everything and wishing I was dead. This is a real thing, not exaggerated. But yeah, so there was a point where I was like, man, I don't think I'll ever feel that way again. And then it came back in the past year or two. And I was like, holy fuck, I did not remember just how bad this was. Because I remembered it was really dark. Yeah. I remembered that it was a constant thing, but I didn't remember exactly how it felt. And then it came back, and I was like, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
I know. I always find myself the most empathetic with other people right after a huge bout of depression. Like that's when I like,
find it daring.
Other times, that too, but sometimes it's just too overwhelming to think about how other people are feeling. But then, like right after, when it lifts and I feel okay again, then I'm like, oh my God, there are other people who just know exactly what that felt like, and they're feeling it right now. And then I feel so bad for them, and I just hope that they hang in there until it lifts for them, because it can be really bad. But But when I haven't had that for a while, I tend to be colder. I tend to be less empathetic, and I tend to be, why can't you just be okay? And so I get where
You're a
Madeline's...
bitch.
I know. I get where where Madeline and people like that are coming from. It's because I think that empathy comes from experiencing suffering, whether it's... And I don't think that any of it is self-inflicted unless you're a sadomasochist or whatever, but like, this is why I wanted to talk to you about Myra, because I was talking to Myra and we were talking about like...
Let's save her for next
Yeah,
time. Were you
okay.
done with Madeline? Or...
I'm done with Madeline,
Okay.
and I think I'm done with Robin too. One more thing about
Okay.
Robin. Robin's buying a house.
Yes,
She's
that's right.
put in an offer, and she got it accepted. So that means as long as the house passes all the inspections,
All the tests and stuff, yeah.
all the closings and stuff, she gets the house in March.
Cool.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's really cool. Is it in the same city she was in?
Yeah, so it's in the same city, and so it's in the same city where her sister lives and her niece and nephew. So I don't know how close it is to them, but I imagine it's pretty close because she lives close to them right now. She's like 20 minutes away. So yeah, and it's 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
We could both move in with her. Tell her.
That's not gonna happen.
Tell her. Tell her, look, we're running out of money. We will come and move in with you.
It's not gonna happen.
Tell
but,
her. Ask her. Be like, hey.
She won't. She can't.
3 bedrooms, man.
She can't live with people. She can't.
Well,
do
she
it.
can. You know why? Because we're amazing people.
It doesn't matter.
And
I was
leave
with her
alone.
Again, I was with her for 3 weeks, and by the end of the second week, she was just... I could tell when she looked at me, it was like, just get out, just get out. And she like booked a ticket for me to come home, and then realized that instead of it being like 2 days away, it was a week away, and then she was just like fucking done. So she just needs to like be by herself when she's at home.
Why is she have a 3-bedroom freaking home then, man?
One's gonna be her craft room, and I think the other one is gonna be...
I think it's a
home
sign.
office.
I think it's a sign.
It's really not.
We're running out of money.
I think we would have a better chance of moving to Arizona and living with Myra.
A better chance going homeless, living with Myra.
I think she would let us move in, honestly. Just based on what she was saying to me when we were on the phone.
No, we'll finish this off. It's interesting to me and funny because I love Sarah.
Me too.
So these are a few of our answers: Sarah, Myra, and Carlene. And Carlene, I barely know. In comparison to the other two, we barely know any of them.
Don't mention Illy or anything.
No, I mean these are the 3 I've spent more time with personally. And
we lived with Illy for a year.
Yeah, but that was like a it's not quite the same.
She was working. She was working 40 hours. She'd come home and make dinner.
That was not the same. We weren't hanging out and chatting and stuff.
Yeah.
I was so young, and it was basically a false motherhood, or a temporary taking care of someone, but not. We weren't hanging out and chatting and shit.
She's not the warmest either.
Not just that. It was a different connection. It was a different thing. Like Carlene, I've had small chats with, and barely.
Carlene's very.
We've hung out with her. We've hung out with her family, and Myra too, and Sarah as well. So no, we have a big family. I'm not trying to ignore family. I'm just saying these are the closest ones that I can recognize, including Robert. Which, yeah, I like, but I know him more than I know most of the others as well.
Fortunately.
But Carlene was really nice, and it's weird to me because I know Sarah a lot more than I know the others. But there's the weird thing, I don't know what it is, but I like Myra and Carlene more. I don't know why.
I like Sarah a lot. I think the problem with Sarah
she's great. She's just awkward.
The difference between them is that Sarah is in the sunken place all the time.
Oh.
And Myra and Carlene visit there rarely. So
that makes sense.
When you see Sarah, she's just so full of like fury and fear that like it's hard.
I would not describe her that way, but
it's hard to get to the sweetness that's on the inside. Like she's a coconut.
Coconut. No, I really wish I could think of the specifics. It's just the way I think of them. It's weird to me.
Yeah.
It's
if
weird,
you can just get Sarah to relax for 5 seconds, she's perfectly lovely.
And this is one of the racist ones.
Yeah.
But again, like that's... one of my friend. My friend is okay, but the rest of them are not. God, I hate this world so much, man.
But that's part of like what I was saying. I think I said it in a previous episode, when you have a really generous and kind of loving spirit, and that sounds like a contradiction, but honestly, you have to find reasons to not be generous with certain people. And if you decide an entire race of people or every other race beside yours isn't worth your time, then that saves you from having to spend your limited amount of kindness on people that aren't worth it.
No, this is such a bad excuse, Crystal.
It's
Just
not an
stop.
excuse.
That is an excuse. You stop it right there.
I just understand it's a very limited kind of emotional availability.
No, that part I understand. Limited, whatever you have to give is limited. Yeah. But limiting it to a race? No. No. I'm not saying, because I'm unlimited. Here's the thing. I understand it because I'm emotionally limited too. The difference is that I was raised and educated in a different way than her. And so I learned very young that that's a bad way to determine somebody's value. And she was never taught that, or she never learned it. And I understand why. When you're like, I understand what it's like to live your life in panic mode for decades. I understand what that does to you. It limits you so much. I didn't hate anybody based on their race. I just hated everybody. Like, that's really, like, when I was agoraphobic, I was just like, the whole fucking world's out to get me, man. Well,
like,
that's where I've been at for a while.
Exactly. So you don't limit your scope of like your generosity and kindness. You just, or at least not to race, but you do limit it to the people that you know and love. But your parameters aren't race. It's just, do I already know you? Do I already love you? Everybody else can go fucking hang.
Well, no, not like that. That would take us further, but no, it's a general anger, and because it's funny when I think of this, when I say I want the world to die, I recognize that I mean literally everyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much I love you. Because I know when I say it that way, realistically, it is literally the world.
But then don't you start like making like exceptions?
Oh, I'll meet them in the afterlife. I don't need to make exceptions. We'll see each other in the next life. I don't care. So hopefully it'll be somewhere better. Although I tell you what, I when I do think of this thing, I do think I would love to see you in the afterlife, but you'll probably be in a better place than I will.
Which circle or hell are you going to be in? So I can visit you.
Right? Yeah, this is level 1 of hell.
Some days it feels like 7.
No, that's why especially in the last year. So like I've had similar thoughts to this, but the last year confirmed it for me. This is hell. I was like, there's no way this isn't hell. This world that we live in right now, there's no way this isn't hell. To me, in my mind, I'm like, there's no freaking way this is not hell. It may not be the worst hell. That I can recognize. I see beauty in this hell, this level of hell, but this is definitely hell.
It's almost like the beauty is a tease.
Or a glimpse.
It's just enough to let you know what you don't have.
It's a glimpse of something possibly better.
Yeah.
So, and that's why.
What kind of hell would it be if there wasn't a possibility you could escape? Because that's the real torture. If hell was all you knew, then it would be normal.
That's true. Yeah.
But I actually don't agree with that, because I know that's kind of common, like, what's the word? Like common wisdom or whatever. It's like you have to understand what bad feels like before you can appreciate
I hate that.
good.
No, it's
you know when it's bad, you know when it's good. You don't need anybody to point out the difference.
That's actually one of the discussions that come up too sometimes is people will be like, no matter what you are taught, at some point in your life you will have that inner voice, or whatever you want to call it, conscience or whatever. You will recognize when something is wrong. You will recognize it. There's that, which I do believe. I've seen it. I've been through it. Whatever. And even if you can't fully reckon it, there's something there. If you don't know exactly what it is, like there's something there that is off. Oh crap! I had more to it because there's more to it than that. That's fun to talk
Yeah.
about and get into. And
We should do it on another episode. Where are we now?
we're 2 hours again.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah,
All right.
I told you. It's not gonna get longer every damn time. Our next podcast will be 5 hours and crap.
If somebody would learn to edit, then they would be shorter.
I know, right? You should really learn to edit.
I should, but
You
I'm
should
not
be the
going to.
professional editor.
The who?
And if wags or dark alchemy, wags
Dark, dark, dark.
would like to get into trying to edit our podcast for us.
Isn't Dark more like suited for that?
No, I'm just kidding.
He's the one that actually requested it, so he should be our editor.
No, look, man, just take your time listening to him. That's all, man. That's the way I think of it. I'm like, you know what? Screw it. If you want to listen, hey, man.
Well, that's what I keep saying about Evan and Caitlin is they post those uncut gaming
5
things
hours,
for 3 hours.
5 hours.
I don't watch them all in one sitting. Sometimes I fall asleep and I go back and rewatch it. You know.
Yeah. We'll see. And I kind of. It's funny because before we started today, I think eventually there will be certain conversation we might just sit here for half an hour. Might have a half-hour episode or whatever, So we're catching up on some chats, and the past few we've done were pretty deep. They're not like little simple, quick conversations that we can have.
Yeah, I think also the better we get to know each other, the more shorthand we'll have.
That's
The more topics we've discussed, the
quicker we get through it.
The more we can just add our new thoughts as opposed to rehashing the whole thing.
Yes. Yeah. What a trip, man.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. I think that's it for tonight. So let me sing you our outro, and Jeremy will join in on the harmonies.
I'll do a backup chorus.
Thank you for listening to the Poor Rikes.
I'll have to figure it out.
The Poor Rikes are called the Poor Rikes because they're poor. Da 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 da. Poor.